Righty. This sentiment of metta was painted by our wonderful Michelle. And this one reads, if I could see it clearly, bear with me. This one reads, may what blocks you from trusting, loving, and accepting yourself begin to crumble. May what blocks you from trusting, loving, and accepting yourself begin to crumble. Welcome, everyone. This is Recovery Dharma. My name is Julia, and I get to facilitate many of our meetings and our practices. For the month of November in the Spokane Sangha, we have been exploring with great detail the idea of generosity, dana. And we've kind of flipped it on its lid a little bit by looking at the way we express generosity, not only from the posture of giving, something within me, I get to give externally, but to also receive what's coming outside of me that I can take in as an act of generosity. What is my capacity to receive? And within that practice, we've explored fearlessly, I might add, the things that we receive in what we would judge to be positive, like praise and compliments, as well as the things that we receive that we might judge to be negative, like criticism, feedback, sometimes even concern from others. Today, we sort of have that in the background because on Wednesdays, what we normally focus on are Zen teachings from various Zen masters, and we've been studying the wisdom of Thich Nhat Hanh for the last several weeks in this wonderful book called Go Slowly, Breathe and Smile. And last week we completed the last teaching. And today what I'd like to bring forward is at the end of this book, a little teaching from one of Thich Nhat Hanh's partners. Her name is Sister Chan Kong. And one of the things that's important about her, about this nun, is she was working with Thich Nhat Hanh way back when, in the 60s. She was not ordained. She was a lay woman. And it was at the height of the Vietnam War. And Thich Nhat Hanh had come out of a somewhat cloistered monastic life to participate in something he called socially engaged Buddhism. And he was going to the local rural villages and he was helping people rebuild their homes. He was helping dig wells. He was trying to restore food. He was really trying to address the needs of his countrymen and women. And Sister Chan was with him the whole time. And one of the things that Thich Nhat Hanh did in the late 60s was he started to become a little nervous about the state of affairs in his nation. And he really wanted to make sure that he stayed rooted in his practice. So with 3 monastics and 3 lay people, he created something called the Order of Interbeing. And Sister Chan was one of the lay people that was involved with this. And Thich Nhat Hanh created a practice with these 6 people, 14 mindfulness trainings One of them was focused on reducing violence. And he really wanted to make sure that he stayed practiced in such a way that his mind stayed free of violence, his actions stayed free of violence, even while there was violence erupting all around him. He wanted to work with looking deeply so that our perceptions didn't become distorted, and really maintain a posture of objectivity. And Thich Nhat Hanh told this little group of practitioners, okay, let's study this, let's work these trainings for 10 years. And let's not do anything about it publicly for 10 years. And let's really fine-tune these practices, which they did. And at the 10-year celebration, he said, we're not ready. So let's practice together for 5 more years. So the order of interbeing, Tiepian, and these 14 mindfulness trainings are deeply, deeply steeped in devotion and extraordinary practice. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit about Sister Chen, because she was with Thich Nhat Hanh from the beginning of his practice. As many of you may know, Thich Nhat Hanh had to leave Vietnam. He was considered public enemy number 1. He moved to France. He had had quite a few contacts in the United States. He was a peaceful protester and pacifist with Martin Luther King Jr. And he settled in France, and with basically nothing started a whole monastic community. And as a result, the world knows about mindfulness, knows about the lineage of Thich Nhat Hanh, socially engaged Buddhism, and Plum Village. It's an extraordinary story, and she's still alive and sharing her wisdom. So this is part of the afterword of this book that I'd like to share with you today, and it's called Rare Flowers of the Country. And my motivation for sharing it with you today is because in the United States right now, we have an enormous amount of disharmony. We have millions and millions and millions of Americans who are absolutely thrilled about the results of the election. And we have millions and millions and millions of Americans who are not. So there's an enormous amount of disharmony and all that goes with it. And so this is an invitation, at least to my mind anyway, to remember that each of us, all of us, are rare flowers. She writes, one day in 1980, I was at our small retreat outside of Paris, thinking about how I could help the people of my country, that part of the earth so dear to me. After practicing sitting and walking meditation for several days, an idea came to me. I saw that artists, writers, painters, and musicians are the rare flowers of a culture, and each one blooms only once. There is only one Beethoven, one Van Gogh, one Shakespeare, one Nguyen Du. The lives of each of these flowers is unique in the garden of humanity. In the past, North Vietnam had been known for its rich heritage of poetry, but for decades since the communists came to power, none of the many excellent poets in North Vietnam had produced a single poem. I said to myself, I must help the rare flowers of this country bloom. I began by sending sending money to one friend in Vietnam and asking her to share some of it with writers and artists she knew who were in troubles with the government. She wrote back 2 months later and told me that she had helped the families of dozens of novelists, poets, journalists, playwrights, and artists, and she gave me their names and addresses. I began to read their writing and listen to their music, and then I sent each of them a gift and a letter of appreciation and encouragement. A group of young Vietnamese in Europe, students of Thich Nhat Hanh, joined me in forming a group to study the work of these artists and to try to understand deeply their art. When we could not understand, we asked Tay, an artist himself. Tay could see more deeply than we could, sometimes even more deeply than the artist himself, and he shared his insights with us. We came to really love the writings, paintings, and music of the various artists. When I wrote to one poet and sent him some gifts, I wrote with the understanding of Tay and the freshness of a young woman commenting on his poetry and appreciating it. The poet was surprised and deeply moved. He wrote back that he had never met a young person who understood his poetry so deeply. He said that for the first time in many years he was inspired to write. For more than 10 years, my friends and I continued this work, and we helped many flowers of Vietnam bloom again. One of the subtle things about this sharing from Sister Chan, it's so subtle could almost go unnoticed. And that is, she began this whole exchange that lasted a decade and more with her own practice. She practiced sitting meditation. She practiced walking meditation. She, at the time, was already a master practitioner. And not once did she allow a moment of complacency to enter her practice. She practiced with devotion and with trust. Something would come. Some fruit would ripen as a result of her practice. What that fruit was, where it was going to go, what it was going to lead to, was not relevant. The practice, the grounding, the centering was all about allowing space for whatever to come to arrive. I share that with you because it is no small thing to practice. It is no small thing to carve an hour out of your day, a whole hour, dedicated to sitting in community, slowing down the mind, softening the heart. Whatever else happens will happen, but just this simple aspect of practice is profound. It is truly the nutrient-rich soil for seeds to be planted, for rare flowers to be nurtured, to bloom. she mentioned the one of a kinds, and she highlighted the extraordinary one of the kinds. And beside the extraordinary nature of a Monet or a Van Gogh or a Beethoven or a Mozart or even a Thich Nhat Hanh or a Sister Chan, lives and breathes the one-of-a-kind, extraordinary you and me. You are the only you that has ever been, and that will ever be. A rare flower. So for the next several moments of silence, the invitation is to celebrate the rareness of you, the uniqueness of you, and to examine what are the actions, what are the wise actions, what's the wise effort that you can do to access your wise livelihood, your wise life. How do you want to amend the soil of you, rare flower? How do you want to water and nurture yourself so you can bloom with peace, as Thich Nhat Hanh likes to say? And maybe to help you stay concentrated and focused, you can allow your own wisdom to speak in the form of a mantra partnered with your breath. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, I am a rare flower. Breathing out, able to bloom in a bleak landscape. Make this your own. See what comes. Enjoy your practice. friends. As we take a step toward the conclusion of this practice, just remember this very simple image that no matter what is happening in your life, even when it is so very bleak from your experience, that you really can turn all of your attention inward, practice, breathe, bring the mind, body, heart, the nurturance of your presence. And there you will strengthen the rare flower that is you, that the world needs to see. Let's come back and end our practice with a dedication of merit. When I think about what it is to be a rare flower, to fully embody that image for oneself, it's about being in a meadow of flowers with a riot of color and blending in and standing out. And in order to really embody that sacred paradox, how do I blend in and stand out at the same time? We have to do what Kevin is risking, and that is to soften the heart, open the heart, put down some of the armor that has served to protect us at one time, but also has served to imprison and limit us. And so what's coming to mind as we dedicate this practice out to anyone who is still harboring a hardened heart, anyone who is shut down and shut in, to embody this practice and presence enough that the softening, the sweet bodhicitta can radiate, can illuminate. In the words of Shantideva, can help dispel the misery of the world. Your practice, the rareness of you, the sacredness of you, you help dispel misery, yours and mine. Thank you. Namaste.